On.
You are?
Here we go.
Okay.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Hello. My name's Katrina. Um, and this evening we're going to be working through our worries together. That was the title that we gave this evening's chit chat. I'm a good many things, but in the context of this evening's events, I am a school counsellor. I work with Acis Youth, which is part of Mental Health Aberdeen. And I'm based over in Tullis Primary School at the other side of the two. And I'm there full time as their counsellor. Um, I offer one-to-one sessions with children. I offer therapeutic space to their families and the wider school community, the staff team. I also do consultation bits and pieces, which kind of means that I join in with meetings and offer a therapeutic eye when we're making decisions about what goes on in school and our policies and procedures and such like. I have to say, I think I've got the coolest job in the world. I love it. So we're speaking about worries this evening, and there are many ways that worry can present itself. Sometimes our children are able to verbalise things. They're able to say, this is giving me jip, this is worrying me, this is on my mind. But nae all the time. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated. Sometimes it looks like a disrupted sleep pattern, disrupted eating or toileting habits. Sometimes it's physical complaints, like a sore head or a sore belly. Sometimes it's regression. It's looking for help with tasks that usually they would be quite capable of doing. Things like maybe getting dressed, brushing their teeth, eating, or doing their chores that usually they would manage fine. Dysregulated behaviour. And I suppose it's fair to speak a little bit about what that means, because I think sometimes we associate dysregulated with being the opposite of regulated. And dysregulated maybe means out of control, and regulated would then mean calm. But it's nae quite as straightforward as that. Dysregulated behaviour, yes, would be being a wee bit overwhelmed, and basically it's emotions getting the better of us when they slip away from our control. So being regulated isn't it about I was being calm. Being regulated in our emotions is about feeling our emotions, but nae being overwhelmed by them. So when we're speaking about a dysregulated display of behaviour, that would be about being disproportionately upset or fearful or anxious about something. And it kind of works in various different ways. It's nae specific to what we would consider as negative emotions. Sometimes our kids will become really overexcited in a way that's a wee bit overwhelming to them. So we're nae just thinking about things that we would associate with being negative. We're also thinking about things like disruptive behaviour, maybe a bit of backchat, defiance, maybe a wee bit of manipulation, playing parents off each other, that kind of thing. One of the other things that we might notice if our kids are feeling worried is ruptures in peer relationships. Maybe they're finding it difficult to manage the general ups and downs that they have with our pals. Maybe that's a little bit difficult for them as well. One of the things that I'd kind of wanted to say in amongst that is that behaviour, all behaviour in our kids and in ourselves and each other is some kind of form of communication. So it's about paying attention to what our kids are showing us and thinking, what are they trying to communicate to me in the way that they're behaving? So we're thinking about that as a selection of ways that might communicate that our kids are worried. We can then think about the many ways that we have at our disposal to think about how we can support our children to deal with these feelings. Be a family that notices feelings. So when I say that, I'm thinking about if you're reading stories, if you're watching movies, time to think about the feelings that are shown in that story or that movie. Think about the emotions of the characters. Be curious about what it might be like to feel like one of the characters that you're watching or you're reading about. And then connect that to your own experiences. Be curious with your kids about times that they might have felt the same way as one of the characters that you guys might be watching or reading about. Model how to feel feelings. Our children will learn more from watching us than listening to what we tell them. I'm just going to take a breath when I say that because it's quite a big deal, because I think the thing is our parents are like little sponges and they notice all the stuff that we do. Sometimes they will ignore the things that we say, but what they will take in is our behaviour and how we manage things. So they learn and they internalise that they experience for us and watching us and dealing with us in the ups and downs of our life. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, hey, I think about what that might feel like for your family and for your kids. And I think it's worth saying that shutting down as well as doing the big feelings is an example of being overwhelmed and finding things difficult as well. So if you're the kind of person that avoids speaking about feelings, avoids being open about feelings, think about what that might look like for your kids and what that might look like if they're having worries. We'll speak a little bit more about that as we go through things, but it's just things to kind of keep in mind. Give language to feelings. Examples of that might be, and I'm sure you'll pick up that I'm doing this in the most diplomatic of ways. I was so frustrated when I went all the way to the dry cleaners and found that it was closed. Another example might be, I felt really sad when I heard that the next door neighbour's cat had died. It's about taking examples of the ebb and flow of life and putting language to it. Nae avoiding the discomfort of feelings, nae trying to shy away from the up and down of things, but helping your children recognise that there's language that goes with this and we can articulate that and do something with it. The other quite nice thing to think about is identifying where things are in our bodies. I work really closely with children, and this is the kind of language that we use a lot. So it's something that I've become really comfortable with and really familiar with, but we are these things, it takes a little bit of practice. So when I think about worry might be that sicky feeling in your tummy. And I'm using examples that I've shared with children and they've shared with me. One that I really like is excitement feels like a fizzy feeling in your hair. And it's this beautiful description of what it is to feel things. Think about connecting various feelings to where they might be. One of the things that I kind of think about is if a little one's got a sore bit, we'll say, tell us what it's saying. Is it inside or is it the outside or is it nippy or is it an achy feeling? We're able to give language to these kinds of bits. But there are so many more feelings that we can connect this kind of language to, and it's taking that as a starting point sometimes and adding more bits onto it and exploring. Giving space to feelings. And when I say that, what I'm meaning is that although we want to reassure our children and tell them that Ahin's fine, no, darling, don't be silly, there's nothing to worry about, Ahin's fine. That in some way dismisses what they're experiencing. I'm thinking of examples of, I think monsters under the bed, it's like the classic one. No, we are kidding. There's no monsters under the bed, of course there's no. But this is a real experience for our children. They're experiencing a fear. So it's about kind of helping them work through that. Now, sometimes you can put your big cape on and you can go on your quest to seek out the monsters and come back triumphant. Look at that, there was nothing there. Bring the kids with you then. Turn on all the lights. Open up the space and do the let's have a look, let's figure this out. Give them the experience of what it is to go right through that range of emotion and internalise what it is to see, to experience, and to evidence that there is indeed nae monsters under the bed. There's nothing to worry about. But give them that as a lived experience. The other thing I often think about in terms of giving space to feelings is if somebody falls and gives themselves a wee bump. And I think as grown-ups, quite often our response is, up you get, darling, you're absolutely fine, don't worry, dust yourself off, you're fine. And that's right enough. Sometimes it's just a bump and they're absolutely fine. But there's value in helping our children check in with how they feel and giving them the opportunity to do that. Actually, how do I feel? Rather than hearing grown-ups telling them that they're all right. Because what we want is for our children to internalise what it is to recognise those feelings. And this is a really good way to do it. You know, help them up, dust them off, and let's see, is there anything that's there? Let's have a look first. Is there anything you can see? Is there anything you can feel? And then do look at, I was right, just a wee bump. Let's get on with it. Some kind of shared experience of what that is without negating their position of feeling and having confidence in what they feel in their bodies. It's an empowering experience to ken what it is you feel, and we want to give that to our children. Make catching up part of your day. Through normalising open discussions, we make the more challenging conversations less of a challenge. If we are families that speak to each other, if we are families that hear the difficult conversations, hear the comfortable conversations, and everything in between, it means those lines of communication are open. And one of the key things that we want for our children to be able to do is come to us and share with us. And we want to start doing that when they're little. So when they're getting older, those doors are open, those lines of communication are open. And it's about finding a part of your day or your week or whenever you feel that this fits in, whether it's when you ask it doing at supper time, hear things that you discuss, and share something in yourself. If you're asking your parents to, you know, and quite often, how was your day, is a wee bit too general. So things like, if it was the best part of your day, if it was the most confusing part of your day, if it was something you learned the day, be specific in asking questions, but gie something of yourself as well. Make this a reciprocal exchange of dialogue. Make conversation something that you guys do, whether, like I say, whether it's supper time or bath time, whether they're in the bath or you're in the bath, because sometimes, and I ken this about, you know, big busy families, I know that some kids say the only chance they get to speak to their mums quietly when nobody else there is when she's in the tub and they sneak in and they have a wee chat. So it's about fit works for your family. I think bedtime's sometimes one that folk think, you know, should we be dipping into conversations at bedtime? And you know what, sometimes bedtimes are really safe, you know, time where there's a routine and there's an expectation that you're going to be together and you're going to have that close, cosy moment. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to mark that a point of your day that you do some sharing. The only bit that I would suggest is if you are sharing things that are a little bit scratchy or a little bit uncomfy, is to make sure that you wrap that up before you're closing your eyes. And that's maybe offering things like Fiddle would dream about a night. Kind of stepping out of that slightly uncomfortable conversation and into something that's a little bit more reassuring and a little bit more regulating. So just that shift and making sure that you tie things up and offer a little bit of reassurance before they're snuggling down and closing their eyes. Monitoring what our children experience. So TV, radio, social media, and the other thing I've noted down here is an overexcited neighbour. Because it's not just about what we see on screens or we hear on, you know, radios and telly and stuff. It's sometimes just about our community, and it's about the network that we spend time with and the conversations that are being had around about our children. Our children are soaking up their environment. Referred to the little sponge thing, this is just what they do. It may not always seem like they're paying attention, but they absolutely are. Sometimes it's consciously and sometimes it's nae. Maybe they didn't understand the complexity of the language that they're hearing. Maybe the folk in the news are speaking about something and they didn't understand these words. Maybe they didn't understand the language, but their systems understand the complexity of that emotion. Human beings are attuned to this kind of stuff, and maybe our children didn't ken why they're worried, but their bodies ken that they are, and that's something to really think about. So that's the kind of general stuff. These are just nice ideas to kind of think about, put into your day, put into your week, bear in mind when things are happening. And this is just something to fit into your life. But sometimes, with the best will in the world, things get tricky. Big things happen, big feelings come. So if it's the best way to support our children when big stuff happens. So helping your children understand in a way that's safe and appropriate. We want to protect our children. We absolutely do. And we should. But keeping children in the dark about things will very often lead to them filling in the blanks with their own ideas. Offer your children a version of events that keeps them safely informed. If you're not sure where to start with that, and sometimes it's a really difficult one, ask them if they already ken about a situation. If they heard, do they understand, what are some of the words that they've heard folks speaking about. Get the benchmark for them, because sometimes we get it really wrong. As grown-ups, sometimes we didn't pitch it right. But look to our kids for the starting point and build for that. It's important to let our kids be curious and again, maintain those open lines of communication. Sometimes the conversations we need to make our grown-up skin crawl. But they need to be able to ask these questions. They didn't need to feel like they need to look after us and keep us from feeling embarrassed or sad or ashamed or uncomfortable. This is for we put our big girl pants on, and we are the grown-ups and we offer them that support. Sorry, there's sirens going on. Filter the information that your children can access according to what you know about your children. You are absolutely the experts on your kids and what they can manage. Sometimes offering them a little bit of a story by the way of, sourcing something out is the way to go. Sometimes, I'm thinking about kind of current affairs and events that are going on in the world just now. And sometimes it's about that kind of shared experience of, watching a little bit of news round together. Sometimes it's about seeking out other sources, but being there as the supportive element to reassure and be there as the supportive element for our children. But what I would say is, dinna try and cover their eyes and shield their lugs for it. Offer them something that they can do with it. That's the way to go. Prioritising safety. And this is a massive kind of overarching idea about how just to look after children when things are difficult. Make Ahin as safe as you can possibly manage. Things that help children feel safe are predictable routines, boundaries and expectations. So being organised, making plans, visual ones if you can bring yourself to do it, so that there's no surprises, there's no shocks out of the blue. Include your children and ask them if it helps them feel safe. And things to kind of think about is, it's about no mistaken safety for regression, because sometimes it's about revisiting the familiar, because that's what makes us feel safe. There's a reason why at certain times of the year, and I'm thinking in a very personal way, Christmas time. I loves me a Christmas movie that I've seen 1,000,000 times over. I ken exactly if it happens, but there's something about currying up and lighting a Christmas candle and watching something that I ken will do exactly if I want it to do. It makes me feel safe, it makes me feel reassured, and I ken ahans all right within that space. And I'm sure we can all think of examples of fit that is. Our favourite food, our favourite song, our favourite perfume. There's something about the familiar that can bring us back to a place where we feel safe. And there's something for our kids about that kind of stuff. Things like transitional objects, look out teddies, look out blankets, wrap them up in something that they used to have when they were a baby. Bring out the baby pictures. Remember that it is for them to be safe and contained and swaddled and loved and looked after. This makes us feel safe. I'm thinking about, food and places as well. If there's a rupture in a child's life for whatever reason and they're feeling particularly worried about stuff that's going on, perhaps going on play dates with new friends or sleepovers with aunties that they didn't ken off a wheel, maybe that's nae the best time to do it. Maybe it's about making ahan as secure as it can be. People offer that kind of safety and security as well. And I suppose I'm thinking about, those things that sometimes crop up in our lives. Maybe they didn't ken fast picking them up at the end of the day, or maybe they didn't ken fast taking them to Dunsin when they're going to want to do that. But at times when things are a little bit unsettled, when they're a little bit uneasy, these little things will just help them feel a little bit safer in their environment if they ken exactly fast coming and going, and they're the people that make them feel safe. These kinds of things make a real difference. Think about safety in the broadest sense of the word, and that will reassure them. My last point here is co-regulation. Just looking at it. So let's think about what co-regulation is. The best example I can give you of this is when our little ones were toty wee and they were having a wee grizzle. We would pick them up into our bosom and we would give them a shouty and would pat their back and would shush them, or would sing them a wee song. We would stroke their skin and we would rock them back and forth, because babies aren't able to regulate their bodies and their systems. They need us to do it for them. And all those things, that rocking motion, that shushing, that shouting that we do, that's about taking them back to that safe space. It's ultimately about taking them back to fit that experience is in the womb. The shush is the movement of the blood. The patting on the back is your mum's heartbeat. The gentle movement is just what it's like apparently when you're in a womb. This is what we're doing. We're creating this space for our babies. And it's about creating that in a way that's age and stage appropriate. Our children look to us for guidance. There's a reason why little toddlers look to mom or dad or their main caregiver if something happens. If there's a big bang, if there's something weird going on, if there's something unfamiliar, little people, and we'll all notice this, they check in with the grown-up to see if their response is. And that doesn't change too much. We look to the folk that we love and we trust to give us the reassurance about our environment. Be the steady influence for your children. They will look to you to be their guiding light. So kenning ourselves in amongst this is of real value. Kenning our own triggers and kenning how to settle our bodies and our emotions is a really important factor in offering co-regulation for our children. Because if we are overwhelmed, if we are dysregulated, to use the language that we've been using so far, our children will feel that from us. Sometimes they need us to be that steady guidance so that they can internalize it and take it with them throughout their life. This is like the main learning point of how we do feelings. We need somebody else to do it with us so that we can then internalize it and take it with us. This is what we do. So need to put too much pressure on Abdi, but it's so valuable that we are in settled, regulated places that we can then offer that to our children. So kenning ourselves, thinking about our own strategies for self-care, whether that's a little bit of time out, whether that's a familiar movie, maybe that's some food, maybe that's going to the gym, maybe it's being with our pals. Whatever it is that we need to regulate ourselves will help regulate our children. But this isn't exclusive to just what we can do for ourselves. This is something that comes via network as well. There's a reason why they say it takes a village to bring up children. It's the most difficult job in the world. I believe that to be true. It is so difficult. And dealing with our own emotions and the emotions of our children can be so challenging. So use the folk around you. Just as I'm saying, think about the things that we can do for ourselves, whether it's a quiet cup of tea and a digestive, or whether it's looking to your partner, looking to your family, looking to your wider network, whatever that is. Fill up your emotional cup so that you have something to offer your children. I think the last point that I want to mark with this is that your connection with your children is by far the most valuable tool that you have in supporting your children to manage their worries. It's the relationship and the connection that you guys have to your children that is the root to all this. You can try all these different strategies, but without the connection, without the love, without the relationship, these things wouldn't hit the same way. They wouldn't land the same way. So if nothing else, that's the bit to focus on. Ready yourselves, settle yourselves, and that way you can offer that to your children. And that's what I have at this point. Maybe we could take a look and see if there's any questions.
Yes, there is one question that came in quite early, and I think you've maybe covered some of this already, Katrina, but one of the question was how to reassure and deal with worries and meltdowns. So you kind of covered that with the kind of keeping safe. So is there some other insights that you would like to just maybe share, just maybe around the meltdown?
Aye. And I think meltdowns can be really, really challenging. And basically what that is being overwhelmed like in high gear. It's cranked right up. So if I can kind of offer some kind of things to de-rune about that time is sometimes our want to kind of get things sorted out as grown-ups can sometimes interfere with the regulating bit. So doing the connecting bits when the child's overwhelmed. If your little one is, crying or fanning on the flare or, doing all these bits, reason and logic does not exist. So fight your own urges to try and do there's no point in doing that. We've discussed this. We're not doing that. These kinds of language-based interactions are just going to bounce right off them. So start with the connecting bit. Do the safety stuff, move things a while if you think they're going to hurt themselves, pull them into your bows if you think they need to be connected, or give them the space if they dinna. But what I would say is that be close by. Or if you cannot offer them the reassurance for your body, if they didn't want that, then offer them that verbally. Say, I see this is difficult for you, my darling. I see that you're overwhelmed. I'm just going to wait right here. I'm here when you're ready. Dinna you worry, I'm here. And offers kind of language of safety. We've spoken about things that we can do in a practical way, but offer that language of safety. I ken this is really difficult to you, but I'm here and I'll help you. So give them a little bit of that. And once they're through that, which does happen sometimes, I realise this can go on for a long time. I can fit thran is. And sometimes it can be a lengthy time that you stay in that moment with the reassurance and the connection, but only once they've come through that emotional bit is fun. You can start to be a bit more logical again, maybe a little bit solution focused. You know, that was really difficult. How could we, you know, do something different next time? Is there something that you need from it? But what I would say is connect first, and then once that's done, once the moments of meltdown has passed, then it's about thinking about more solution focused and logic based stuff.
Thanks, that's really helpful. I hope that answered your question. We haven't got any more questions coming through, so please just pop some things in. One of the questions that was asked earlier on, submitted earlier, was about how to deal with just being anxious around moving to a new school, or perhaps just moving from primary into secondary, or maybe that transitional points. Could you give us some tips on that?
Yeah, transitions are so difficult there. And, you know, as grown-ups, we can recognise that. You know, some of the most difficult things that us grown-ups are able to experience, I think one of them is moving house. I think that's like on the top 5 of the most difficult things that we need to contend with. So, and, you know, children are just dealing with their own version of life. You know, their networks, their peer groups, they're familiar with, their routines. So shifting from one school to another, you know, is that big for our children? And I suppose it's kind of referring back to some of the things that we've spoken about in the more general sense. It's about making plans. It's about being predictable and offering that routine. Sometimes you know, we can be led to the idea that being a little bit more free with bedtimes, or, you know, the food that's in the fridge, and routines and things. Sometimes we think that gaining a little bit more freedom doing that at difficult times can be the way to go. But quite often, if we move away from predictable bedtimes, we get sleepy, cranky, dysregulated. I think sometimes choosing, you know, fast food over fits in the fridge, you know, doesn't give the kids what they need for their bodies to work. You know, sometimes, you know, maybe nae going to football practice or dancing or going out for a walk, maybe just staying in and mooching under a blanket seems like an appealing way to go. But one of the things that helps us regulate is movement and giving our bodies what we need. On a kind of difficult point, you know, think about, are you sleeping right? Are you eating right? Are you moving right? These are our basic needs, and a great place to start if there's any kind of transitional thing going on. But think about safety, think about routines, and do practice runs. And it's about offering those practice opportunities in a time where there's no stress, there's no demand, there's no expectation. You're just doing it for the fun of it. It makes it happen in a way that's safe. So if you're going somewhere new, for example, and they're unsure about that, you know, take a run, you know, make a map or go on Google Maps and set it up, pack a picnic, make an event of it that's not based on the thing that's causing the worry, so that they then become familiar with it in a way that internalises that memory without the worrying factor, because you've made it something different. So if you can connect different feelings to a place or a person or an experience or a transition, do it when there's no stress and no pressure. That might be something to think about as well. But I get the basics, do lots of planning, keep everything predictable, keep it safe, and practice.
Thank you. Okay, we've got something that's just come in. Parents just posted her daughter is worried about everything poisonous and asked repeatedly if things that are poison, for example, food, fluff, bugs, tiny specks. Are there any resources or any tips that you would ask that you could offer?
And I think quite often that, you know, depending on age and stage, this is something that our children can learn about, and they go through these points of being concerned about, you know, these dangers that, you know, at a previous stage in their life they had no idea about, but now they're like, oh, hold on, there's stuff that I maybe need to be a little bit concerned about. And there's something really quite healthy about being a little bit worried about things that might do us some harm. So I suppose it's about getting the balance right with that. And I suppose that's where there's an opportunity that if you know, if it's suitable, it's about maybe doing a little bit of investigating, doing a little bit of research, get on Google, go old school, bring out the encyclopedias. I love that kind of stuff. But maybe finding out fit things are worth worrying about and fit things really aren't. And again, it's that offering the information in a way that's safe, because there are things we need to worry about. There are things that will make us feel yucky, but most stuff is actually all right. And it's about getting that balance right.
Thank you. So we've got another question to come in, and it says, how do you deal with it when your child starts to notice that they are in the minority, and celebrating their individuality, I'm guessing, and just trying to maintain their confidence and being, yeah.
Confidence is a really interesting one, isn't it? Another internalized thing that we didn't just learn from being told by external people that we're loved and we're special and we're individuals, but by seeing how other people live their lives as being different and being individual. So I suppose there's something about creating a shared experience of that. I was watching a documentary about the Encanto movie. And I suppose this is just, it's because it's, you know, a reasonably recent thing that I watched. And one of the bits of that were all these little lassies with, you know, great big dark curls, wearing little glasses, you know, little people of colour, you know, recognising themselves in a movie, in something special, in something that was being celebrated. So there's something about accessing these wonderful differences, these wonderful individualities that our children have, and celebrating them through seeing it in other people. I think it's about remembering it's not just about being told we're wonderful, but having experience of other people believing they're wonderful too.
Right, let's see, I think we've got another questions come in. How do you help children deal with difficult friendships or being left out, which can leave them feeling insecure and lead to worry behaviours? That's quite a hard one.
It is. It's really difficult, and I think sometimes it's about that really strong desire that we have to protect our children from having difficult relationships, for feeling that it is to nae be in the in crowd, or to be rejected, or to hear folks saying unkind things. And I'm kind of thinking, oh, you know, about, you know, first heartbreaks and these kind of things, and there's just this desperate need to protect our children from all those feelings. But as we've said, with the best will in the world, you know, life happens, difficult things come and go, and peer relationships and challenges within that, you know, are part of that story. And I think it's about, you know, encouraging resilience in our children rather than trying to avoid the difficulties that might come, and thinking about the stuff that we've made mention of this evening, about keeping communication open, about demonstrating that it is to have the ups and downs of life and still manage it, about celebrating with individuals, you know, amazing bits in our own special ways, about realising that nobody's got to like us all the time. That's part of our story. So something about, you know, just encouraging the understanding that sometimes it's difficult, but we've got the grit and the resilience to manage it.
Okay, I don't think we've got any more questions there. We've just got a few more minutes, so I'll maybe just go back and have a look at some of the previous questions, or if you can think of something else that you want to add in, Katrina. I think, let's see. One of the questions that I suppose is common to us all is, what is the best thing to say to children when they're worried about something that you can't resolve for them? That's quite a common thing as a parent myself.
Absolutely. Wouldn't it be great if I had the answers? Or if we couldn't somebody that did? That would be fabulous. It's modelling that it is, nae it ken. And sometimes we can go and seek it out. Sometimes we can do the I dinna ken, but maybe we can go and find out. Sometimes there is some way that we can go and do some solution focused bits. But sometimes it's about shrugging our shoulders and offering our children some love and reassurance, and sometimes we just dinna ken.
I suppose it's sticking with that uncomfortableness and having that feeling of not knowing, just what you were talking about earlier about not dismissing that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got, I just want to remain true to the time, so we've got a couple of more minutes, and we've got just a question that's just popped in just now. What can you do to reassure a child who's always worried about little things? I think we've maybe covered that already with, but do you just want to maybe, like, for example, do we have our house keys?
Yep. And you know what? Sometimes it's these little things, and we were speaking about, this works both ways. In offering reassurance about the little things, we can try and balance that stuff out. So if we can, that a little person does that, oh my God, have we packed a bag? Do we hear and we need? Are we going to be there on time? Do I need to worry that I'm going to, need the toilet on the way there? These little kind of just everyday things that can sometimes be a wee bit niggly, but because they're there, they build up that anxiety. If we can about that, then we can plan for it. So if something like house keys is the issue, then, mark house keys a big thing, and, shout it and shack them as you're walking out the door. I've got the house keys, but then I need to worry, they're gone in my pooch, here we go. Dinna shy away from these things. It's that kind of, it's avoiding the, dinna be silly, of course I've got the house keys. But doing the, you didn't need to worry, I have got this, I have the house keys in my hand, today is going to be a good today, let's do this. So, include that. Sometimes it's about making a big deal of the little things just to bridge that gap until the reassurance is internalised and it's not such a worry anymore.
That's helpful, thanks. We've got a couple of more questions, and then I think that we'll just need to kind of end, but somebody's posted, I believe this is a common question, perhaps linked to this question, is do you have any tips for children that are scared of dying and death? I'm wondering if we've got some resources that we could post after this event. Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think this is such an emotive subject for families to deal with, because if there's one thing that's absolutely certain, we all will die. There is something real that we cannot avoid for our children, but there's also the reality that most of us will live long and happy lives and this will be all right. But it's about giving them the understanding of it. It's about nae avoiding the discomfort of having those open discussions. Look for books, have conversations, think about it, and think about it in ways that's safe as well. If we're thinking about practicing things that are safe, little wee tiny bugs or plants or these kind of things. This is a safe way to look at the cycle of how things go through a beginning, a middle and an end. And that's kind of part of that. But just as I was saying, at different points of development, different things present. There are stages in development where children become aware that there is an end. So they need help in making sense of that and piecing it together. So you're right. I think it's probably about, looking at the resources and stuff, but also finding ways that you can offer them the understanding in a safe way, but also preparing ourselves as grown-ups for when we have these conversations that we're nae, fueling it with our own stuff and our own concerns.
Okay. I'm just conscious that we've kind of run out of time, but I'll maybe just get you to answer this very quickly. Is how to deal with teenage anxiety about being singled out. Now, I'm presuming that the person that's asked that, being singled out, maybe in a negative way, but I obviously can't say because the person hasn't said that. But if it's possible, just to quickly do that, and then we'll just wrap up. If your question hasn't been answered, if you do have some questions, I have put on, I will put on Acis's information email, and there'll be folk at the other end that will be able to support you at the end. So maybe if you could just answer that one a little bit.
Okay, so there's a reason why that's such a big deal for teenagers, is because they're going through, and I'm speaking about development again, but there's that stage for, you know, tweenies and teenies that they're venturing out for their family network and they're finding where they belong. So that sense of being part of something is as strong for our teenagers as it ever is. They are overwhelmed at points by how important it is to fit into something. So it's big and it's real. But there are so many different ways in our modern society to connect with things. And whether that be, you know, in the virtual world or in the real life world, there are ways that we can connect with things. You know, if there's an interest, if there's a hobby, if there's a joy or a fascination, there's maybe ways that connections can be made with that. But I suppose that the bit about that is an absolutely normal part of development, that a sense of belonging and connection to their peer group is so important.
Thanks very much, Katrina. I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody tonight, just for coming along and giving us some insights. My takeaway from what you've said tonight is just about be a family that notices feelings and does feelings, and just particularly about giving a language around feelings so that we can just grow and develop our children in a healthy and a positive way. And just that connection, that's my 3 takeaway things. So just can't thank you enough for coming along. And what we'll do is we'll once I edit the video tonight, we'll send that out to everyone that's come along, and I'm going to send you a evaluation just to let us know what the impact you felt tonight with the talk, and I'll send you some other resources too, just some links so that you can just think over some of the things and maybe ask further questions and get support. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to sign up. Good night.